Okay, sometimes we have to simplify numbers that have the imaginary I involved. Well, remember, just like when you're simplifying a fraction that has a radical, and you can't have a radical in the denominator, so it doesn't matter what the number is here, but you can't have a radical in the denominator. It's called rationalizing the denominator. You need to do the same thing um, with imaginary numbers. And remember, I times I is -1. Well, -1 is a rational number. So to cancel out an I to the first, just multiply it by I, and I times I would be -1. So that's what we're going to do with these. So for this one, since 2 is already rational, we don't have to worry about 2. We're going to multiply. Remember, when you multiply the denominator, you have to also multiply the numerator, because we're not changing the value. We're just changing its costume. We're just changing the look, because I divided by I is 1. 6 divided by 2 root I times 1 is still that, but we're just going to change the look of the value so it's now rational. So I think that's what I did here. And then I times I is I squared, or -1. So I didn't show the whole process. So 6 times I is 6I. 2 times I times I is I squared. Well, I squared is -1. So now we have 6I over -2. 6 divided -2 is -3. And then that's over 1, but we don't have to write it. So we could actually leave it as -3, 1. And if I want it written in complex number form, you would just write 0 subtract 3I, and then you would have it in complex number form. So it depends on what your teacher's asking of you. So we're going to do the same thing here, multiply top and bottom by I, and then we have -10I subtract 9 times I squared over 9 times I squared. Do not make one of the most common errors, meaning that you're just going to cancel out the 9I squares, because this is part of an expression. So we can simplify further, because I squared is -1. -9 times -1 is 9. So I'm going to put 9 without the I in front, and then that says -10I. And then in the denominator, I times I is I squared. I squared is -1. Well, we don't want to leave a negative in the denominator. 9 divide -9. Well, remember, and we can't, I shouldn't have said it like this. Positive divide negative, this becomes negative. Negative divide negative, this becomes positive. And you're going to end up having -9 plus 10I all over 9. And then the better way to write it in complex is -9 divide 9 plus 10I divide 9, which you then could write -1 plus 10/9 I. So depending on what your teacher's asking, if you need it in complex form, simplify it to there. All right, that's it for this one.